Before I start this video, I want to mention a company called Goat Guns. For those who don't know, Goat Guns makes these incredible models of military rifles. They are really quality pieces too, and large. They are 1/3 scale to the real thing, and measure nearly a foot long, or 28 centimeters. Much larger than I expected from the pictures when I first saw them online. The models are just that, models. The barrels are plugged and cannot be modified to fire. They are also die-cast metal, not plastic as you see a lot of other companies make. And they're pretty easy to assemble. This is the instructions that come with it. It took me about 5 minutes to assemble. No need for any glue or paint. And the M16 model doesn't require any screws either. Everything snaps together. Despite this, it is really sturdy. It's not going to bend or break under normal circumstances. The level of detail is what I think really makes these models stand out from others. This one's magazine detaches and comes with several rounds. You can pull the charging handle back and the ejection port pops open. The trigger moves. The foregrip can move around on the handguard rails. The scope as well. And I also noticed that the scope has a little lens in it which you can look through. I know I've said it before, but these models are great. I love them. Perfect for any enthusiast, either for yourself or as a gift. Check out their website. They have several other models as well. Again, that is goatguns.com. The cruise missile is an old weapon that goes back a full century. In 1918, a weapon called the Kettering Bug had its first flight. The weapon was a tiny aircraft, propeller-driven, with a bomb on board. It was slow flying, around 80 kilometers per hour, with a range of slightly over 100 kilometers. Out of 24 test launches, it only succeeded 7 times. Shortly after World War I ended, funding for the project was cancelled. The next major step in cruise missile technology was the Nazis during World War II. The weapon was the infamous V1. The V1 was powered by a jet engine, giving it a much faster speed, somewhere around 650 kilometers per hour, which is faster than many interceptor aircraft of the day, making shooting them down very difficult. It had a large payload of 850 kilograms and a range of 250 kilometers. After the war ended, both the Soviet Union and the United States gathered V1 parts to create their own versions. The Soviet Union named their weapon the 10KH, and the US version the JB2. With this leap in cruise missile technology, both superpowers began developing more and more advanced missiles throughout the Cold War. Early Cold War cruise missiles were built with extremely long ranges and carried nuclear weapons. For example, the US SM-62 Snark. The Snark had a range of over 10,000 kilometers, giving it the ability to hit Moscow from literally anywhere in the continental US. These missiles, however, were quickly sidelined in favor of intercontinental ballistic missiles, as they were relatively more reliable, could carry larger warheads, were much faster, and all but impossible to defend against. Later in the Cold War, as guidance technology increased, cruise missiles made a comeback, this time in the conventional role, with significantly increased accuracy. Without a doubt, one of the most difficult things in developing cruise missiles was navigation. These missiles flew hundreds, some even thousands of kilometers, with no pilot on board to steer them. Early missiles like the Kettering Bug and the V1 used an anemometer, which kept track of the distance it had flown based on how many revolutions it made. The weapon was programmed then to cut power to the engine once it had reached a predetermined number of revolutions. At this point, it would glide down to the ground and detonate on contact. This, however, was not very accurate. Things like wind could throw the system off by miles, especially over long distances like that of the V1. Because of this, they were only accurate enough to hit extremely large targets, like major cities. London, for example, with the V1. The US Snark used something called Astro inertial guidance. This method used stars as a reference, which it can use to stay on course. This significantly increased accuracy when everything worked. The Snark failed numerous times due to complications in using this form of guidance. Other methods included radio guidance, but it was the development of terrain contour matching, or TERCOM, that increased accuracy to a point where cruise missiles could reliably hit and destroy a target without a nuclear weapon. It worked by having a contour map of the terrain loaded on the missile. As the missile flew, it would compare the map to what it was seeing and make adjustments accordingly. This guidance system is still used today on many missiles, alongside more advanced forms such as satellite navigation from GPS satellites, for example. As a quick basis for the video, I'm only going to be focusing on land attack cruise missiles. I already made a video comparing US and Russian anti-ship missiles, which I've linked here if you're interested. Also, an important term is CEP, or Circular Air Probable. This is a number typically given in meters. It is a distance in which 50% of projectiles launched will hit within. So a 10 meter CEP means that if 10 missiles are fired, 5 of them will be expected to hit the target within 10 meters or less. First is the US. The US currently uses 3 different types of long-range cruise missiles: the Tomahawk, JASSM, and the conventional ALCM, all of which are subsonic. The Tomahawk is by far the most popular of these. Odds are most people you would ask would have heard of this weapon, more so than any other. It has been used over 2,000 times in combat over the last 30 years. Over that time frame, the missile has gone through numerous upgrades, the newest being the Block 4. The missile has a range of nearly 2,000 kilometers, depending on variant, and flies low to the ground to avoid detection. The Tomahawk is launched from ships and submarines. Its CEP is somewhere around 5, maybe 10 meters, and it carries a 450 kilogram warhead, which seems to be common for most long-range cruise missiles. The newest version can also perform some reconnaissance as well, with the ability to loiter over an area, take pictures with an onboard camera, and transmit them back to base. They have also been upgraded to be able to be redirected while in flight. So if a target is no longer a threat or has already been destroyed, it can be redirected to hit another target. Second is JASSM. JASSM is fired by a number of aircraft, from bombers like the B-1 and the B-2, to fighter aircraft like the F-15E and the F-16. JASSM also carries a 450 kilogram warhead and flies extremely low to the ground, somewhere between 10 to 15 meters. Again, this is to help avoid detection. Along with its low altitude, the missile is stealthy. The combination of these two greatly increase the difficulty in detecting the missile. It is also extremely accurate, stated to have a CEP of about 3 meters. The original missile had a range of about 400 kilometers, however it has been upgraded to the JASSM-ER, with a range of 1,000 kilometers. And finally is the air-launched cruise missile, specifically the conventional version. The ALCM was originally built to carry a nuclear warhead, be fired from the B-52, and hit targets deep inside the Soviet Union. Later, a version armed with a 500 to 1,400 kilogram conventional warhead was developed. Still fired from the B-52, it has a range of over 1,000 kilometers. Like others on this list, it flies close to the ground at around 75 to 100 meters. The missile is due to be replaced by the JASSM-ER, and the nuclear version with the planned LRSO. Russia, on the other side, also operates several cruise missiles, albeit at a significantly lower number than the US. Like the US, all these missiles are subsonic as well. The first being the KH-55. The KH-55 is an air-launched cruise missile built during the Cold War and still used today. The missile is strikingly similar in appearance, size, performance, and payload to the American Tomahawk, and there are disputing claims as to whether or not the KH-55 copied the Tomahawk design. Like the American ALCM, the weapon was originally built to deliver a nuclear weapon deep inside enemy territories. It has an extremely long range of over 2,500 kilometers, carries a 400 kilogram warhead, and is believed to have an accuracy around 25 meters. Next is the KH-101. The missile is similar in appearance and payload size to the American JASSM-ER. Both are stealthy air-launched cruise missiles that carry a 450 kilogram warhead, and both fly at high subsonic speeds. The KH-101 is larger though, some 7.5 meters compared to JASSM's 4.25, and weighs twice as much. The larger size gives the missile a longer range, which is stated to be around 2,500 kilometers flying at terrain level, further if it's flying at higher altitudes. Speaking of terrain level, the missile can fly between 30 to 60 meters off the ground, which again makes it more difficult to detect, and therefore more difficult to intercept as well. It is believed to have an accuracy around 10 meters. And finally, the ship and sub-launched 3M14. The weapon has often been compared to the American Tomahawk. It also carries a 450 kilogram warhead at a range of about 2,000 kilometers, flies at similar altitudes, around 20 to 50 meters, close in size, and is fired from ship-based VLS cells, all like the American Tomahawk. Defending against these weapons is difficult. The most ideal defense strategy is to deny the ability to launch these weapons in the first place. The Soviet Union and later Russia, for example, built numerous anti-ship missiles that were fired from ships and aircraft, with the goal of sinking American ships before they could launch Tomahawks. Extremely fast interceptor aircraft like the MiG-25 and MiG-31 were also fielded to shoot down US bombers approaching the country before they can fire their air-launched cruise missiles. This, however, requires a vast number of aircraft, ships, and bombers constantly ready to react. Also, this cannot possibly predict a surprise attack. Instead, nations have developed systems to detect and shoot down the missiles themselves. This, however, poses a challenge, mainly due to the low altitude that they fly at. There are several reasons this makes detection harder, first being the horizon. Because of the curve of the Earth, a ground-based radar would not be able to detect these missiles until they are around 25 to 35 kilometers away, depending on the height of the radar and the missile. Also, the Earth is not flat. Mountains, hills, trees, and buildings can obstruct the view of the radar. In fact, many of these missiles are designed to fly in valleys and terrain to minimize the likelihood of detection. In real-world conditions, this can leave the defender with about only 1 minute to react. Stealthy weapons like JASSM and the KH-101 can further decrease this time. This is an area Russia has devoted a lot of time and attention, due to America's large arsenal of cruise missiles. Weapons like Tor, Tunguska, and the newer Pantsir S-1 are designed to very quickly react to any threat and shoot it down. Early detection is key. The earlier you can detect the threat, the more time you have to intercept. This is a strategy the US currently relies upon, having aircraft like the E-3 AWACS and the E-8 J-Stars high in the air to detect these threats early, and direct interceptors to shoot them down. The modern cruise missile is an incredible weapon, offering incredible capabilities. However, they are expensive, typically costing around $1 million or more per missile. For this reason, they have still not replaced the manned bomber, dropping weapons like JDAMs on targets. Although technology has been advancing rapidly. Over a dozen nations now operate long-range cruise missiles, including the US, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, the UK, France, Israel, and others. And these weapons will only proliferate in the future, so who knows what the future will hold for the land attack cruise missile.